HE News, episode number 28. Welcome back to another episode of Health Empowerment News with CROFT WOODRUFF. This week, more on depleted uranium, vaccines, and Gulf War syndrome. And thanks for listening again to Health Empowerment News with CROFT WOODRUFF. I'm here in Studio 604 in Vancouver with CROFT WOODRUFF himself.
Good morning, Andrew. It's good to see you.
And,
had a little bit of a hiatus there for a couple of Saturdays.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful Saturday today here in at the 49th parallel. And we are going to talk quite a bit about a few things we've talked about already, depleted uranium and vaccines and possible causal links to Gulf War syndrome. And we'll get into a little bit more on vitamin D and C and things like that for protective effects on against radiation.
Yes, particularly when we have Fukushima in the background, and from what I can understand, they really don't have that under control at all.
Yeah,
they have meltdowns. I guess in at least 3 or 4 of the reactors, but I'm not certain on that.
Mm-hmm. And the a video that you sent out to your list, it was actually, I watched it this morning. I got up early, and it's almost 2 hours in length, or actually more than 2 hours in length.
It's just about 2 hours.
Yeah, and it's produced by Gary Null, who is a world-renowned natural health doctor and advocate.
And researcher. Yeah.
Researcher and author of many books and director of all sorts of documentaries. This one in particular is about depleted uranium having a causal link with for the symptoms of
Gulf War syndrome, they call it.
Yeah, although they've been calling it post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yeah, this of course is a cover-up.
Yeah, yeah. So great video. Do you want to summarize it and just for people who? And I'll put a link in the show notes to the video.
Well, what it is, we have veterans of not just the 2 Gulf Wars, 1 and 2, but also from the breakup of Yugoslavia in the mid-1990s. And it turns out that the NATO was using weapons made with depleted uranium. The lovable thing about the depleted uranium is that it is very, very hard and dense, and a shell that is coated with this metal goes through a thick plate steel like a knife through a hot knife through butter, and it vaporizes everything. And the result is that we have fine particles of depleted uranium that contaminates everything in the air, the soil, the dust. Can you imagine in a desert area such as Iraq, where it mixes up with the soil, and every time there is a desert storm, you have this sand kicked up with the wind, along with the very, very fine particles of depleted uranium, and they're for people to inhale. And now we see in Iraq epidemics of cancer that have gone up astronomically. I forget how many types of cancer, but it is absolutely frightening what they have done, the warmongers, because that's what they are. They make money from selling war, and under the guise of freeing people from tyranny, when in fact they give them a new tyranny. And the tyranny of disease and in the exposure to depleted uranium.
The cancer rates, they're saying an epidemic of cancer in Iraq are primarily in children.
Yes.
Because they're more susceptible to the radiation.
Absolutely, because of the rapid,
damage.
they're growing, and there's rapid cellular change, and the result is that they're very, very vulnerable to from poisoning, radiation poisoning, and the damage to the cells that can accrue, and the result is the birth defects, 2 or 3-headed babies, minus arms or legs or all, and distortions of the physical body. It's just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too is, of course, the rates of cancer are, a 2-headed baby is something that really we take notice of, but these increased rates of cancer are something that it's
they're
not
taken
as
for
obvious.
granted, more or less.
Yes,
You've got increases in leukemia. You have increases in skin cancers. There's thyroid cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer, because for one thing, the liver and the kidney are very important organs of elimination. So any toxins going through the body hit the liver and the kidney, and there's a price to be paid for that.
Mm-hmm. And the soldiers, of course, are poisoned by the radioactivity as well.
Yes,
being exposed to depleted.
Well, it
uranium.
depletes the immune system. That's another thing, and they're trying to blame it on a non-existent virus, or they're looking for a virus or a bacteria, and the result is that they have no answer, and it's just a cover-up. And it's ironic because they have been genetically engineering viruses as well as bacteria in their quest of producing vaccines. And in that, they open up a whole can of worms in terms of the inflictions that they are doing to the immune system. And not just mankind, but nature itself. It's just frightening.
Okay, so they use this because it's easier to penetrate armor.
That's right.
Using these weapons.
That's their justification.
And as long as these depleted uranium shells are, as long as they're encased in the bullet or the shell, they don't pose a significant risk. But once they
have exploded, once they go into the armor of the tank, they explode inside. And everything is contaminated with depleted uranium. Everything is pretty well emulsified, you might say.
Yeah.
And turned into minute particles. And there's nothing left of any living organism. But the remnants that are left behind, of course, are the radioactive isotopes.
And how long do they last in the environment?
From what I understand, we're talking about maybe several hundred, if not a million years, hundreds of thousands of years anyways. I think the diminishment of some of the radioactivity might take at least 200 years. And that, from what I can gather, not all that significant a drop.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to live with that. Our children, our grandchildren have to live with that and cope with it.
The Pentagon says, officially says that depleted uranium weapons are safe.
Well, of course, otherwise they wouldn't be able to use them.
And now quite a few doctors and experts are saying that it is a direct cause of the symptoms of the Gulf War syndrome. And they're also pointing the fingers at the vaccines that the soldiers were exposed to, mainly because in one day they can receive half a dozen or more vaccines, which increases their.
From what I understand, it can be as much as about 158 shots from the time they are inducted, and go through the whole course of induction. That they could accumulate that many.
Wow!
And of course, these vaccines contain at least 24 micrograms of mercury, which is a very toxic neurological poison. And of course, there's also aluminum in these vaccines. It, too, is a neurological poison.
Well, if it doesn't contain mercury, it contains aluminum.
Yeah, if it doesn't contain mercury, it still could have aluminum. But I understand the majority of these...
Squalene as well.
Squalene, yeah. This is a fat from whale oil, isn't it?
Yeah, it's similar to cholesterol.
Yes. And it has its own set of problems and probably hastening the onset of cardiovascular disease.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why we're bringing this topic up again is because it's come to your attention that in Libya they're using depleted uranium.
Yes, they are. They're denying it, but they are using it because there's no way that they could get away with what they're doing in terms of the tremendous force of explosions. These cluster bombs are deadly, absolutely deadly, and that's what they used to great effect in Iraq and Kuwait when they went in to drive the Iraqis out, and of course in the Balkans during the breakup of Yugoslavia.
Interesting. So in all of these wars or whatever their official term is for them,
money-making machines.
In all of these incidents, there's been some kind of a version of Gulf War syndrome happening where the soldiers become ill.
Yeah, after they're out of the service and they become ill. And because it happens after they're out of the service instead of while they're in the service, then the military medics get out from under by saying, oh, no, it's nothing to do with being in the service or being exposed to this, that, or the other thing. And, of course, the vaccine damage that is done is one of the biggest cover-ups of the last century.
Mm-hmm. So they're being exposed to radiation from depleted uranium. They're being exposed to toxins like mercury and aluminum and squalene in the vaccines.
And of course, there's experimental viruses and bacteria that they have been working with in their quest for vaccinations, and in effect also using the soldiers, the men and women who've volunteered to fight for freedom, and this is inflicted on them in the name of science and a scientific experiment, because that's what they're being used for as guinea pigs, really, and nobody's told about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
but that Gary Null documentary is well worth getting.
Yes, I watched it this morning. Excellent movie. If you're at all interested in this subject, I will put a link in the show notes. Or if you just go to Google Video and search for, it's called Gulf War Syndrome, Killing Our Own. And it is a very, very good documentary. Now, I have to say that Google Video is being shut down fairly soon. So try and catch that video soon. We'll also try and find another source for the video and possibly even
make it available on DVD and for free, because it's for quite a while Gary Null actually was making that video for free.
Yeah,
and asking people to duplicate it and distribute it as much as they possibly can. And I would certainly urge people to do exactly the same thing. If they want to free us from this tyranny that is going on of the Wall Street bankers and the munitions makers and the medical mafia, which is big pharma, then this is what you have to do.
Yep, there was a number and an email address where you could order the DVD and they would send it to you for free, but apparently that it's to a contact that's no longer affiliated with Gary Null. So we will try and find a correct person that we can refer you to get the video. Otherwise, we will find another way to make it available.
Excellent.
And we were talking before the show a little bit about thorium, which is a mineral or element that has similar properties to uranium, but it's less radioactive and less toxic and
less likely to cause a meltdown.
Yeah, apparently it doesn't have the ability or the capacity for a chain reaction. So if it does,
or to sustain a chain reaction,
a chain reaction, making
so it can't be used
impossible.
as a bomb.
Yeah.
But it can be used as a steam generator to produce electricity.
But it was
because essentially that's what a nuclear power plant is they're just using an atomic reaction to heat the water to produce the steam to drive the turbines, in turn driving the electrical generators.
Yeah. And a well-known former politician and talk show radio host and journalist here in Vancouver, Rafe Mayer, did a piece on nuclear energy, and a lot of people thought that he was in favor of nuclear energy, but he came out with a blog post saying, no, I said nothing in favor of nuclear energy, but only made the point that before anything is rejected, we should study to see what our options are. And thorium was looked at seriously in the early days of nuclear power as a source of nuclear energy. And the only problem with thorium is that it doesn't produce byproducts.
Fissionable materials that will produce a bomb.
Yeah, you don't get plutonium from thorium. You can't get. It's just not possible. So with uranium, of course, you can get these byproducts and produce nuclear. Yeah.
Well, plutonium is well named. Pluto is Greek mythology or Roman mythology was the lord of hell, and Uranus is about somewhere on the same scale, anyways, and hence uranium was named after the Roman or Greek god Uranus. And I also have a bit of a joke about that because we know what the what the rear end of the colon is. And we're getting the kind of deal that you could expect from an emptying Uranus, or if you know what I mean. Yep. Terrible joke.
A raw deal. Yeah. Okay. No, it's actually a pretty good joke. The use of thorium is now starting to come back into favor, with India looking to replace all of their to become completely thorium reactors within the next 15, 20 years. So is that a good move? It's definitely a better move.
Well, I would say that it's far better than sticking with these plutonium uranium reactors. From the standpoint, the thorium reactor is much, much safer, and it doesn't proliferate a lot of radioactive waste, which the uranium and plutonium type of the current type of units that they have that give us trouble in Fukushima, and of course they had 3 Mile Island in the United States. They had problems with the atomic reactor in central Washington. I forgot the name of it. But as they have that atomic energy section in Washington, and then there was, of course, Chernobyl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because I'll put this post by Neil Reynolds from the Globe and Mail. It's an article that he wrote on May 23rd, 2011. Basically saying with thorium we could have safe nuclear power, and he's basically saying that they didn't choose uranium because it was a better fuel. Thorium is actually more abundant. It's all over the world. It's simpler. It's safer. It is slightly radioactive, but it can't sustain a chain reaction like we talked about earlier. So a meltdown's impossible. And the only reason why they went for it is because of in the Cold War. The science goal was synonymous with the military goal, which was nuclear weapons, and plutonium delivered the deadliest mushroom cloud. So it is for that reason that we have nuclear power using uranium and not thorium.
Yeah, it's the military-industrial complex at work here. They're the ones that are behind it. This is what President Eisenhower, when he retired from the U.S. presidency, that's what he warned us about, was the military-industrial complex. But in part of that axiom also should include medical complex, the military-industrial medical complex, because much of this is also tied up with the pharmaceutical industry, which in effect controls the medical industry. And there's one reason why we have the medical system that we have, and a medical system that was not really satisfactory to humanity, and gave rise to the natural health industry, and returning back to herbs and vitamins and minerals through proper nutrition.
Wasn't it DuPont who coined the term "better living through chemicals"?
Somebody like that, yeah.
And now it's the pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceutical industry's slogan: "Better living through pharmaceuticals."
That's right. That's exactly what they're trying to push on us.
Yeah.
When in fact we have these situations where you have a patient who is diagnosed as being, in this case, we'll say HIV positive, and the test is faulty, so you could test positive when you're not, or you might test negative when you're not. But in any case, if you are testing positive, the drugs that they give you are, without exception, immune suppressant. They are metabolic poisons, and they will make you positive. And this is the sucker that the HIV/AIDS patient gets drawn into.
Did we ever do a whole show on that?
We should.
I think we've intended to, but we never did, because that's something that
is very important. It has to get out there
a long time. Yeah. So maybe we should do that. Maybe next week or in a future episode.
We'll
go into detail on that one. And it's not just a few people that are out there that are coming up with these theories. There's a whole group of really established and
very powerful scientists, well-researched, well-credentialed, exactly.
That are coming out against the current paradigm, if you will. Yeah. Oh, you mentioned before the show that this thorium was a Canadian invention.
That's what I understand. That it was that was the original format of the CANDU, as I understand it. But I could be wrong.
No, you're right, because I'm just looking at this article in the Globe and Mail, and it's saying that they experimented with thorium, and we're going to use thorium, but it says, ironic, isn't it? Canada experimented with the safer, simpler thorium for decades, yet in the end, confronted with an elemental choice, Canada chose plutonium.
Because they wanted to make atomic bombs.
To fuel its nuclear reactors. Right. But now China is crediting Canada and saying that they're going to go ahead and use thorium.
I gather it's a Canadian patent, and then, isn't it?
Probably. It says Canada will realize full potential for... which announced 18 months ago that Canada's reactors provide the ideal technology for China's full-scale use of thorium as an alternative nuclear fuel. But, ironically, we didn't even use thorium ourselves.
No, that's the ironical part of it. Because we have had accidents, I think, in our own CANDU reactors, similar to what they had at 3 Mile Island, and
without the meltdown, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's. Let's move on to we were talking. Actually, we're kind of tying a few shows together here, because we did talk about depleted uranium before, and we've talked about, of course, the Japanese situation at length, and we talked about natural protection from radiation, low doses of radiation, using all sorts of different natural remedies.
Vitamin D, for instance. If anybody wants a copy of this, they can contact me at croft.woodruff@gmail.com, and I'll be quite happy to send them a copy of the item. And of course, this item is that this vitamin can radically reduce damage from radioactivity from Fukushima, in this case. And it was posted by Dr. Mercola, who is a medical doctor, but who actually practices more naturopathy, I think, than he does medicine.
Yeah, he's a medical doctor and also an osteopath, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he points out that vitamin D3, which is the natural occurring form of vitamin D, it has a powerful ability to affect many mechanisms regarding the way our cells operate. And part of it is apparently helping to protect us from radioactivity or the damage from radioactivity. And what he says, according to a paper of the International Journal of Low Radiation, our understanding of how vitamin D mediates biological responses has entered a new era in view of the evidence that has been presented in this journal, I presume is what they're saying. It would appear that vitamin D, by its preventive ameliorating actions, should be given serious consideration as a protective agent against sublethal radiation injury, and in particular that induced by low radiation. And what you're looking at probably is around 4,000 to 8,000 international units of vitamin D3.
Whoa, hang on a second, Croft.
Yeah.
Isn't the daily recommended allowance for vitamin D 1,000 international units?
Yeah, well, they're talking about four to 8 times that much. 500, I think, is the maximum.
Yeah.
And but they're changing that now because of what this kind of research is coming up with.
Well, I take 2,000 in with breakfast and 2,000 with dinner.
I take at least 4,000 units, international units a day of vitamin D3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
it's inexpensive. That's the beautiful part of it. You can get a bottle.
Oh yeah, it's super cheap.
Of 250 tablets for very, very reasonable price.
And it's well researched too. It's
That's
not
right.
It's not a vitamin or natural product that is being touted without anything backing it up. It
That's
is
right.
a very well researched vitamin. So and actually, is it even a vitamin?
It's actually more like a hormone, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
and
it officially is a vitamin.
And then we produce it in our own bodies from the interaction of the ultraviolet B rays of the sun interacting with the cholesterol that is in our skin. Number 7 dehydrocholesterol. That is the oil on your skin, and the interaction of ultraviolet B rays on that it changes, I guess, and the result is that it's absorbed deeper into the skin where it's further metabolized. And the body uses that for many functions, and obviously it plays a big part in immune function,
and
certainly bone health, calcium and magnesium metabolism.
That's exactly what your article here is saying. It's saying that your best source of vitamin D is exposure to the sun without sunblock on your skin until your skin turns the lightest shade of pink.
That's right. So there's no point in having a sun bath and then having a shower after just to wash all the oil off your skin where all the good stuff has taken place. You wash it down the toilet or the shower stall instead.
They're also saying that if you're living in an area where you can't get too much sun, you can use a safe tanning bed to fill in the gaps during the winter months when you're not getting healthy sun exposure. And you can supplement with vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, and do not use the synthetic and highly inferior vitamin D2, which is one that most doctors will give you a prescription for unless you ask
what's the chemical name for D2?
It's edirocalciferol, or I can't remember actually.
You haven't got a copy.
I did know that one.
Yeah.
I think it's edirocalciferol.
Cholecalciferol.
Tongue-tied right now.
Cholecalciferol. Anyway, we'll look that one up. And in fact, it might be in here in any event.
Yeah. Well, vitamin D, it has, a lot of the research that's been done has been for cancer prevention, and it's been shown to prevent 16 different types of cancers, and the Vitamin D Council is actually saying that it should be used for cancer treatment as well, in high doses to as a what do you call it, a
therapeutic dose.
Yeah, therapeutic dose, but as a, what do you call it, a therapy, adjuvant therapy to go along with whatever else you're doing to treat the cancer. Yeah, you're still looking for the vitamin D.
Yeah, I'm looking for the synthetic name for D2.
Vitamin D2. Here, let's see. I'll find it here. Ergocalciferol.
Yeah,
vitamin D2, ergocalciferol, and vitamin D3 is calciferol.
It's called 25-hydroxyvitamin D.
Yes. Hey, when somebody made a comment on one of our podcasts in the notes, and said that we erroneously called vitamin C a vitamin. What are your thoughts on that?
We erroneously called vitamin C a vitamin,
or more specifically, ascorbic acid.
Ascorbic acid.
Yeah.
In its purest form, it is ascorbic acid, but it occurs naturally in fruit and vegetables. Some of it as ascorbic acid, and but as calcium ascorbate, magnesium ascorbate. In fact, you can get it in several mineral forms. Any mineral that the body needs, if it's available as an ascorbate, then it's desirable to get it. But like anything else, you don't overdose on things like, say, zinc ascorbate or iron ascorbate. You don't want to take too much of some of these minerals into the body, essential as they may be, but only in very small amounts. In the case of calcium and magnesium, with regard to calcium ascorbate or magnesium ascorbate, it will have a very powerful laxative effect. Even ascorbic acid will. But certainly the person takes issue with us calling ascorbic acid as vitamin C, but in fact it is recognized as such by some of the foremost nutritionists of our time. So what can I say?
Yeah, I'm not
Perhaps
sure
you could send us the evidence that refutes the claim that vitamin C is not a vitamin, or ascorbic acid is not a vitamin.
Yeah, because I'm not sure where he was coming from either. He just said that in this episode you erroneously stated that vitamins, it's not vitamin C. He didn't say vitamin C. He said ascorbic acid is a vitamin, and I'm trying to find the comment. But he said that it was a metabolizing agent or something along those lines, and not a vitamin. But anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, I'll check that one out. That's interesting.
And so and vitamin C, we're going to talk about a little bit about vitamin C and radioactivity. And its ability to protect you against...
Well, vitamin C is a chelating agent. It will bind with minerals and help the body to excrete them. Whether or not it mitigates... I don't know enough to say that it would mitigate the effects of a mineral like depleted uranium or some other radioactive mineral. I really don't know enough to make a comment on that, really.
Okay.
I do know this, though, that vitamin C is something that is very important for the health of the kidneys as well as the health of the liver. And I just find it ironic. I just saw in the news and heard in the news the other day about a man who's got a form of hepatitis C, and the provincial government, Medicare, doesn't want to pay for the cost of the therapy they want to give to him to deal with this form of hepatitis C that he is apparently suffering from, when in fact all he needs to do is to take several grams of vitamin C a day, more or less. I would say take it up to bowel tolerance. And when you start having loose stools, that's the time to start cutting back until your bowel movements are normal. But vitamin C is a powerful antiviral agent. And it just amazes me that the provincial government's healthcare system isn't even aware of that, particularly after the work of Linus Pauling and Frederick Klenner and Robert Cathcart. And these are doctors who worked with patients or worked with doctors like Cathcart and Klenner and show the potent effect vitamin C has in boosting the immune system and neutralizing viruses and having a positive effect on conditions like cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Many, many years ago, I was approached by a woman regarding her mother who was an escapee of the Nazi death camps. She had a huge ulcer on the inside of her right leg, just below the kneecap. It was so big you could have fit the pit of a mango into it. It was that big. And when I was asked to see her, because this woman seemed to think that I could do something for this dear woman, she also had just below the ankle bone on the outside of her right foot a huge ulcer. You could have had the depth of a toonie and the diameter of a toonie, and that was giving her much pain. And she asked me if I would massage the foot, which I did, and believe it or not, the pain went away. But I suggested that she try high doses of vitamin E and vitamin C. And the long and the short of it is that the ulcer on the heel disappeared within a few weeks. And within several months, the ulcer on the leg just below the kneecap on the inside of the right leg had gone down to a very, very small size. As I understand it, she went to Israel and plastic surgeons actually did a skin graft and covered it over to finish healing it up.
Interesting. Well, I mean, there's countless stories like this. You've got probably a whole book that you could write.
Yeah, I'm not a very good writer. That's the trouble. My grammar's terrible.
Well, you just need an editor.
Yeah, that's it.
So or you could dictate the.
Yes.
There's some software
the essence
where
of the yeah.
You could just dictate it and it'll
well, this
voice
dear
to
woman,
text.
with what she had gone through with the Nazi.
I think we should ask our readers our listeners how many people want to read a book from CROFT.
Okay, we'll see what happens with that.
Nutrition versus
I'm
disease.
Getting on, I'm going to be 77 in August, so.
Yeah, well, I think it would be a great book. Anyway,
so far my memory isn't too bad. I have lapses, so you have to bear with me on that. And, we'll just see how this evolves.
Mm-hmm. So, I did find the comment here. It's basically exactly what I said. Said absorbic acid was wrongfully called a vitamin. It is actually a metabolite. Do some research.
Well, that's fine. I only go by the doctors that were using ascorbic acid in its various forms, either as calcium ascorbate or sodium ascorbate, and getting very positive results. And they chose to call it vitamin C. And
it actually is classified as a vitamin.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, even vitamin D is classified as a vitamin.
I guess he had to give us a bit of a put down.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of things that used to be called vitamins that are no longer called vitamins.
It just reminds me, when I was doing a bit of research with regard to Gary Null and the work that he's done with this Gulf War syndrome, and the number of attacks against him by so-called scientists and journalists. Why is it they always have to attack a person just because they disagree with them? or worse, because they dare to question the medical and pharmaceutical establishment.
Well, people are scared of the unknown.
Yes.
And
but they have to strike out like a rattlesnake,
Yeah, there's this whole quackery.
That whole business.
Conspiracy theorist thing.
Yeah.
If you say anything that's a little bit too far along.
There are conspiracies. What do they think the Gulf of Tonkin was?
Well, there's definitely conspiracies, but if you speak out against a conspiracy, you can be labeled as a freak or a
9/11 truther is an example, for instance.
Yeah, so there's this this whole mentality that anything that's different is you have to, if you have a different viewpoint, you're a wacko.
Yeah, well, for instance, as a good example is 9/11 and the plane that was supposed to have hit the Pentagon, and the size of the hole where the plane was supposed to have entered the Pentagon should have sheared the wings off and left them behind, not to mention the two engines. And the hole that the plane was supposed to have come out of was much smaller in diameter. And in fact, there was a woman and her youngster that was with her who was in that part of the Pentagon where the bomb, or the plane hit rather, and or supposed to have hit. And she walked out through that hole into the open sunlight, where the plane was supposed to have exited. She's suing Cheney and the Pentagon. And you can see how far that she's getting with that, because the judge happens to be a relative of George W. Bush.
Mm-hmm.
How did he get there? Whatever happened to impartiality in the courts?
Yeah. No. And the question is, okay, so this is a viewpoint that is not being promoted by mainstream media, but yet you've just mentioned it on this program, and does that mean that people who don't share that view should automatically discredit you and say that you're a complete wacko and that you've been reading too much conspiracy theory books and maybe listening to Tom, what's his name? Jones.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones,
yeah.
And Jesse Ventura and all these guys.
Yeah.
And no, of course not.
Jesse Ventura has a well-documented book. They ought to read it.
I'm reading it right now, actually. You lent it to me last time. And it's the thing is, no matter what, you can't put two people in a room and have anywhere in the world, there's going to be any two people that you assign to sit in a room together and have a discussion. They're not going to agree on everything.
That's right.
And who cares if somebody has a different viewpoint? And who cares if they're completely wrong?
If they can present it logically,
mm-hmm.
And that you can accept that. I mean, what about the bombing of the Reichstag in Berlin that turned out to have been in a conspiracy engineered by Hitler and his cohorts, but nobody complained about that, did they?
Yeah,
because they were a bunch of fascists in support of it. That's why.
Yeah, and you've got people who have religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs and all sorts of things that aren't necessarily mainstream and aren't necessarily have any basis in logic or fact, but that's fine. People can believe what they want to believe, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And of course, when it comes down to these some of these conspiracy theories, like the one that you just mentioned, there's a lot of actual logical and compelling evidence to support them. Yeah. And why close your mind and label it as garbage when in fact it could be true or there could be a grain of truth. There could be partial truth. With anything these days, you never know exactly what is the truth, but you have to weed through all the facts and try and figure it out for yourself. That's my opinion.
That's right, and of course that's the whole problem. In fact, with our education system, we're not really teaching or educating our children to be critical thinkers. to look for the logic behind things. And that's why we have a problem today with the type of politicians we send to Ottawa, for instance. I'm thinking of every one of those politicians voted to bomb Libya.
I think that the problem isn't just on critical thinking. I think the problem is on control, concentration of control of resources within a few corporations, and these same people who are supporting the system are saying that the capitalist system is the best system, which I happen to agree with. But this is not capitalism. This is corporatism. In a capitalist society, you would never have a true capitalist society. You would never have this kind of concentration of power, because you would have perfect competition, and there would never be
monopolies.
There would never be monopolies, and in most cases, these monopolies that do take control of a market do so with the government's help. They don't do it on their own. There's a licensing body that is preventing entrance into the market that is endorsed by the government,
and who
this
finances
market is artificially created. So I'm not saying I'm a pure capitalist. I'm not. I believe in a good mixed economy with social programs and everything like that. But at the same time,
one reason why we get into trouble with our capitalistic system is because we don't attend to the social programs that would ameliorate a lot of the problems that capitalism can engender. Unemployment and food stamps. And,
but none of that would increase, maybe the standard of living of the people, which is awesome. But that would not prevent large corporations like Monsanto being able to influence politicians and to be able to change the rules of what can be legally patented. Like, for instance, we talked about this in episode 5, I believe it was, how Monsanto was able to get a patent on a living organism, which was previously unpatentable.
Yeah.
But they did so by basically buying politicians, and they did it. It should be illegal, but it's not to do this kind of it's a big conflict, and it shouldn't be happening. And that's my rant for the day. And I think we are out of time. So. Any last thoughts on this topic, CROFT?
No, I think we've pretty well given a good rake and hoe for sure.
So in the show notes, if you go to foodsornotdrugs.com or to podcasthero.com, you'll find the show notes, and we're going to have links to the articles and to this video, the Gary Null video. It's called Gulf War Syndrome, Killing Our Own. It's about 2 hours long, and it will have the Google video link for as long as it's still up, and we'll have alternate sources available for you to get the video if you want. You can contact CROFT at croft.woodruff@gmail.com, and you can call us at 1-877-636-1474 and leave a message if you have a question, a suggestion for a future episode, any kind of a general question about natural health freedom, or anything like that for CROFT. And that's about it.
I might add that Gary Null wanted people to take that documentary and spread it far and wide. In other words, it's open copyright. They want to get it out there as much as they possibly can to educate the people as to what government is doing to its own military in the name of freedom, when it turns out to be betrayal.
And not just its own military, but the people of these countries that are now having to, the American soldiers are now at home and are suffering the consequences of the, and not just American soldiers, the British and Canadian soldiers.
We have
that
Italian
are there
soldiers
too.
that have had a tremendous epidemic of leukemia, and they were in Kosovo.
But it's the Iraqi people and the Afghanis and now the Libyans who are now in this environment, for the rest of their lives and possibly their children's lives, depending on how long this contamination will last. So,
yeah, and of course they won't attribute it to the proliferation of depleted uranium or other radioactive material. They'll be looking for a mythical virus, and you'll have all these organizations out asking us to raise money to look for this mysterious virus and cure the people of these conditions, when it's just not going to happen.
When the truth is staring them in the face.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and do call in with any questions and comments, and we will see you again in a future episode.
Enjoy the sunshine and get as much vitamin D as you feel you can afford.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that right now. See you next week.